All right, hour number 2 here on a Thursday. Chris Brown, Steve Tasker with you, and pleased to be joined now by NFL.com writer and fantasy football analyst Adam Rank joining us here on the program. And Adam, we hope you're enjoying your summer. As you know, it's almost over. As training camp,
it's over. No, it's over. Listen, by the way, congratulations to you. This is a small thing for me, but this is a great time to be on with both of you. So I appreciate it. Thank you for bringing me into the celebration.
Yeah, happy to have you, and thanks for that. You've been working on your state of each and every NFL team on NFL.com. You've made your way through the AFC East already, and we have, AFC East myopia here, so we're going to focus there with you. And we'll begin with the Bills because that just makes sense on a Bills show. And you're rather bullish on the Bills, which I think would put you in somewhat of a minority, because I think from a national perspective, there's a healthy group of people who are fearful of the turnover and subtraction of household names that people have become familiar with on this roster, whether you're talking about Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Micah Hyde, Jordan Poyer, stalwarts year over year on a very successful team. So the question I put to you, Adam, is why do you remain bullish on the Bills?
Josh Allen's still the quarterback, right? He didn't leave. If I missed that, then I would apologize. True. I will change my tune. And I don't want to be one of these guys that just comes out and says, hey, you know what? Every time you have a quarterback like this, you have a puncher's chance. But it's significant. I mean, you don't understand. I think Bills fans have been spoiled. And over the last number of years, when you have a quarterback this good who can go out and do the things that he does, I would feel confident going into any season. And I understand you lose some pass catchers like Gabe Davis, like Stephon Diggs, but now you've got Dalton Kincaid arriving. You have Shakur coming up. I think that Josh Allen makes these pass catchers better. So for me, and as a fantasy person, I would love to see James Cook get involved. So I don't know what kind of sway you have with the coaching staff. I do know that when Joe Brady took over last year, they started running the ball a lot more effectively. So again, I think there's reasons for optimism with the Bills. And I think I'm more bullish too, because it's this is it. This is actually Sean. I don't know. I don't want to get too far in front of myself, but I think there's still a lot of talent there in Buffalo. So there's not a reason to be overly concerned.
One of the things that also turned over this year was the defensive coordinator, and I said this, and I always put finger quotes on it. It's the third defensive coordinator in 3 years. They moved on from Leslie Frazier last year. Leslie had this defense in the top 5 every year ranked, but they were rarely spectacular under him. McDermott, not so much. They were churning it out. They were getting turnovers. They were getting interceptions. They were getting sacks at a much higher rate, although their defense overall might have been a hair off those rankings than they were with Leslie Frazier. It was a much more spectacular defense at times. Now Bob Babich takes over, a guy who's been with McDermott for 13 years. Before he was a head coach, they were together. Now he gets the nod as the coordinator, a lot of energy. What kind of bump in the radar is that for you?
Well, it's one of those things. When you look at defenses statistically, I don't want to read too much into it, because I think you just got to look down the road in Cincinnati with Lou Anarumo, who has a defense that's never in the top 15, but then when they get to the playoffs, they start playing well. And I think that's what Buffalo needs. And it's exactly what you were talking about. It's cool to be a top 5 defense, but if you're giving up big plays in the playoffs, then what good does it do you? And I think that the change is good. I think that Sean McDermott, and this is no shot on Leslie Frazier, who I love, and I would consider him a friend. But at the same time, you know what? You got to go out there and make the moves. And the defense, I thought, did play better last year, especially when it mattered the most. So again, like with the thing with Josh Allen, I feel very confident with this. I think this Bills team's ready to go. And you know what? Sometimes it just takes some time to get the coaching staff that you want, get it in order the way that it needs to be. And I think that's what Sean McDermott was going through.
The one interesting take that you did have in your State of the Bills was you feel like Super Bowl is kind of got to be the end game here for Buffalo. They've got to be AFC champions this year, or you think that, there could be some trepidation with Sean McDermott's future. I'll play a little bit of devil's advocate here, Adam. I mean, there's only 2 teams in the league that have made the playoffs each of the last 5 years. It's the Bills and the Chiefs.
Yeah.
That's it. And all indications are the Pagulas absolutely love Sean McDermott, and Brandon Beane as a lockstep combo. You think they really need to get that far to keep him off the hot seat?
I mean, you ultimately have to cash those in. Like, it's great. It's great to be in the mix. And if you want to be a runner-up forever, like, I don't think that's what Buffalo wants. I think that this franchise and this fan base has been yearning so long to be a Super Bowl champion. And Sean McDermott has now gone out there and arranged the staff like he's wanted to do. And I even kind of put the phrasing a little harsher than you were doing, and I thank you. But I'm not afraid to say it. I'm like, the scapegoats are gone. You got rid of all of them. You changed the offensive coordinator. You've changed multiple defensive coordinators. Stephon Diggs is gone. Okay, now it's you. Now it's up to you. It's kind of like being a stand-up comedian. You know what? You can be funny, but when you're on stage, you have to deliver. You have to make, you got to make the jokes land. You got to make people laugh and things like that. Sean McDermott now needs to get this team to the Super Bowl. Now, obviously, if they went to the AFC Championship game and they lost or something like that, I would think that would be enough to keep Sean McDermott around in Buffalo. And then outside of a disaster, I would imagine he probably comes back. But at the same time, like, you do want it. Like, it's such a catch-22 because I've seen teams do this before. I was down in San Diego years ago when they fired Marty Schottenheimer after a 14-2 season, and then they brought in Norv Turner, and you're like, yeah, maybe that wasn't the greatest idea. So again, there's a lot of that going on. Like the devil is better than the devil that you don't. But at some point, and I love Sean McDermott. Listen, I always stick up for a fellow bald. I want to see him get over that hump. I want to see him beat the Chiefs and beat the Bengals and those are the two teams that you need to knock off. And I think that playoff game, and I might have wrote this. If I didn't write this, it might have been edited out because I'm sure I said this. That playoff loss to the Chiefs, sort of stole that. You saw the soul leave Josh Allen's body, and it is not returned. They need to bring it back. They need to do it, and I think it's important for them. Is it going to cost him his job? You guys would know more than me, but it's almost put up or shut up time.
And we revolving around the AFC East and where we got. Certainly, the Dolphins were the team last year before the Bills walked them down in the last month of the season and nipped them at the end and got the division title. And the Jets, they blew up on Week 1 opening night when Rodgers went down. You can take your pick. We'll start with the Jets because here we feel like the Jets are the biggest problem for the Bills to beat. A lot of teams struggle with the Dolphins. The Bills don't. The Bills do struggle with the Jets, no matter what the one-loss record says. And now the Jets have a 41-year-old taking snaps. He's got 1,000 snaps he's got to take for an 18-game schedule, 2 middle-aged tackles protecting him. But other than that, this Jet team looks like they're going to be a problem for everybody else.
I would agree. I would think it's one of the best rosters in the NFL. When you look at them top to bottom, especially on the defensive side of the football, this is a dynamite team. They've done a great job of roster building. And I know they did go out there and they got a couple of, not necessarily journeymen. These are veteran players who played well in the NFL who are going to be tackles right now protecting. They found tackles who are somewhat similar in age to their quarterback, which is kind of nice to keep everything good. But I thought a great move for them was going out there and getting Fashanu from Penn State because he does give them some flexibility right there as a swing tackle, as a guy who doesn't need to rush into the starting lineup, but can learn behind two pretty good players. And when he gets his opportunity, I truly believe that he's going to shine. And then you got Garrett Wilson and Breece Hall, and they've got some exciting players. I do believe they need one more piece at wide receiver. I know the rumors are floating around about Devontae Adams. I don't think they need to go that big. I don't know if these teams would trade with each other, but I think T. Higgins or Brandon Ayuk, who, obviously Ayuk has been rumored to Buffalo, or fans have rumored them to Buffalo, I should say. Like, there's nothing official. But I think the Jets, if they got one more piece on offense, especially at one of the skill positions, I think that they could be very dangerous and be in line for the Super Bowl.
So Adam, do you feel that way because you're not expecting much from Mike Williams, their free agent pickup coming off the knee injury?
He's a very talented player, and I think that coming out of Clemson, dynamite player. And again, being out here in Southern California, watched him play for the LA Chargers, and there are times where you're just watching him, and he is just amazing. But his issue has been his availability, and he just hasn't been on the field enough. If by some miracle, and he's playing at the Meadowlands, so let's Let's be realistic here. I hate to say anybody's injury prone or anything like that. It's a violent football game. Like, any injuries can happen at any time, but we need to see him for a full season. And if he plays somewhat close to a full season, then that would be the missing piece.
And then as far as the Dolphins go, there's this little thing called a contract extension for Tua, which I think could become very polarizing if they don't get this thing squared away, and it doesn't seem like they're close or that anything is imminent, because the Dolphins are in one place and Tua wants to be at the top of the market. And it seems at least readily apparent now that they're not on the same page in that regard. I don't know what their alternatives are when your backup is Mike White and the market's dried up. Like, they've really painted themselves into a corner here. How could you see that kind of upsetting the apple cart for them before they even get to week 1?
Yeah, that could be a huge issue. As you said, there's nothing out there, and unless, what are you going to do? Go back and get Ryan Tannehill? Is he still available? Like, I don't know what you would do without Tua Tagovailoa. And whatever you want to say about him, I truly believe he's a good NFL quarterback. I think he should be the quarterback of the future. This team has made the playoffs in back-to-back seasons, and they went a long stretch from 2002 to Mike McDaniel was hired. They had made the playoffs just twice. And so he comes in there, gives them instant credibility. He's turned them around, and they've got not necessarily a veteran team, but when you have players like Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, you want to go out there and win now. Like, this is a team that's definitely in the mode to win right now. They've done a pretty nice job. I think that they're going to weather the Christian Wilkins thing pretty well. I actually thought that was kind of a savvy move, because they went out and brought in like 30 defensive tackles to kind of fill that spot and really, really built everything out. So they need to get this done. And I know that quarterback prices are a little spendy, but it's like being at the gas pump. It's like, yeah, I wouldn't want to pay this much. I wish we were paying $19.99, but the reality of the situation is this is what it costs to have a franchise quarterback. And if you want to be competitive in the NFL, you need to have that quarterback.
How much do you make because a lot's been made of the turnover on the Bills' defensive roster. A lot of guys in the front seven are going to be washed through. The Miami Dolphins have gone through a little bit of a changeover on their defensive roster as well. How big an effect will that have, or is their offense just going to be so high-powered they don't care?
Well, again, I think it comes down to sometimes you're better off having more depth, having more availability, having more guys to draw from instead of putting all your money into one player, which is what they were asked to do with Christian Wilkins, and they wisely chose not to. And I think the change at defensive coordinator is pretty good, too. I know Vic Fangio came in, he did one season, now he's up in Philadelphia. It was funny listening to some of the comments of the players. Like, that does not seem like they're going to miss him at all. So they have a new coaching staff and a new thing. And the one thing about the NFL, and it's a stark departure from the 90s. Steve, like, you were playing, like, the Bills had like such a great defense with great players who played there forever. The Dallas Cowboys, who won a number of Super Bowls, had great players who played there for a long time. We don't get that anymore. And you just want to now get teams and you don't have to be a shutdown defense, but can you make the big plays when it matters the most? And I think the Dolphins will be all right. I think I was impressed with the way they were able to handle the situation and navigate it. It might take a couple of weeks for them to gel because we don't have the practice time that we did back in the day. But I think ultimately this will end up being a sound defense.
All right, so last one for me, Adam. How tight can you see this race being? Like, we get to the last month of the season, do you think these three teams, provided nobody suffers a catastrophic injury like the Jets did last year, do we see them kind of neck and neck all the way down the stretch here?
Yes, it's a three-team race. I'm glad you pointed that out. We don't even need to talk about the other team, although I do want to bring it up because I don't know what is going on, who's in charge of the schedule, but the Buffalo Bills, 2 of their last 3 games against the Patriots, this is like Alabama. This is like Alabama being like, okay, our last 3 games are Troy, and we're getting Cal State Fullerton. And what is this? What is this nonsense? Now, obviously, this is well. Listen, when you come off the bye week, like there's the 49ers, there's the Rams, that's a tough stretch. That's 3 brutal games right there.
Not to mention the one before the bye.
Oh gosh, yeah, there's the Chiefs too. So okay, so they threw you a bone. Okay, they did. You sort of deserve that. I don't know. I think it will come down. It's going to be very fun. I did my predictions. You can find them on NFL.com. I know that I have 3 teams from the AFC East making the playoffs.
Oh, okay.
So I think it's going to be a fun division. I would say that if it wasn't for the Patriots, it would be the best division in football. But they're kind of dragging it down. They're the Paul Roma of this 4 horsemen. So unfortunately,
how much do you think?
Five people get that joke, but it's fine.
How much do you think their new quarterback Drake May plays? Do you think he gets in? Does he see some time? I mean, I know there's going to be huge pressure.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because like a lot of times when you have these teams, then you have a legacy coach come in, like, hey, we're passing the torch from Belichick to Gerard Mayo. Like usually the team's still pretty good. Like remember when Bill Walsh stepped down and they gave the team over to George Seifert? They went out and won a Super Bowl. They waited till the Patriots cratered, and they're like, okay, good luck. Go take over this team.
Right.
It'll be a lot of fun now. I don't know. I didn't necessarily like Drake May as a prospect coming in. And listen, I've been wrong before, which is fine. Like I've made mistakes. I really felt that they should have traded out of that spot and started to build a roster and really started to put some other, or even if they just stuck at that spot, I would have taken Marvin Harrison Jr. and been like, we'll get our quarterback next year because we're going to be awful and we're going to be in line for the number 1 overall pick. So I'm curious to see what they do. I think at some point, whether he starts the season or not, the one thing that'll keep fans interested is to bring him back. And I'm just curious, though, if they start to trade away some of their other valuable pieces on this roster. Does Ramondre Stevenson get traded to a contender? Does Matt Judon get traded to a team at some point? So for me, I feel bad. They're putting the quarterback into they're putting Drake into a situation where it's not ideal. Like, yeah, you're not really walking into the Patriots of 20 years ago or 10 years ago even. So I think it's going to be tough, but I think the only thing they're going to do, they're going to have to play him because at what point, why do you want to run out a veteran anyways when you can just go out there and see what you got with the rookie?
Adam, thanks for the time. As always, we appreciate it.
Adam.
We'll keep our eye on your stuff on NFL.com all the way through the season. Thanks much.
No, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. Good seeing you guys, and I hope to do it again soon.